while I'm up here, I'm going to show you my other two hanging Hoyas right now. And these two are two of the oldest Hoyas that I have in terms of like when I got them. So they were fairly early on acquisitions for my Hoya collection. And they also are pretty well tied for size in terms of being the largest Hoya in my collection. So I have a Crinkle 8 here. This is a cultivar of Hoya carnosa. Crinkle 8 is the name, and it has these wonderfully dimpled leaves here. Let's see if I can get a shot that isn't super backlit. Running into similar issues here. But it's a nice sized plant, and I had recently repotted this one because the pot that I had originally put it in turned out to be a little bit too large, and it did okay in it for a while. And then fairly recently I noticed kind of a subtle decline, and it was time, you know, I checked the soil, it was pretty wet, and it was time to get this guy in a better situation. So this is also the plant that I took those cuttings from. You might have noticed those in part 1. Where are we? But those cuttings are kind of rescue cuttings. It was the vine on this plant that was kind of in the worst situation, and so I was trying to rehab them in water. Over here, this is my big, beautiful Hoya pubicalyx. Just a regular pubicalyx. It does have some splashy leaves, which is cool. It seems to have splashy leaves. The greater the light that it's in, the splashier the leaves kind of become. So it seems to be happy here. Finally found its home. And it is actively growing. It's a cool one too. So I love having these hanging plants in here. It really kind of frames out the window, and it just creates this nice place for some of these larger plants that I don't really have shelf space for anymore. This corner's a little empty. I'm gonna figure that out too. But yeah, I love my hanging Hoyas here. And so kind of the last area that we're going to check out today is my window shelf. And this is a shelf that I constructed kind of haphazardly, just out of a couple of bookcases that I had, and then this board that I acquired from a family member who's in construction. It just all worked out. So again, kind of a mix. I have a couple of non-Hoyas on the shelf, but it is mostly Hoya, so we'll focus on those guys today. Starting over here by the window, this is my Hoya melliflua, and this one's a little thirsty. It is watering day, I think. So what I love about melliflua, it doesn't have any, you know, the foliage isn't necessarily striking, but it is just a very cool shape, and the leaves are very sturdy when they're not thirsty. And then this is probably one of the longest vines I have on a Hoya. I've already had to coil it around the trellis that it's on, and it's already kind of growing up and around. So that's a good sign. In front of that, I have one of two Hoya Macrophylla Variegatas. And this little small one was kind of dormant for a while when I had first gotten it. And so I ended up finding a larger one at a local garden center and picked that up. And like right around the time I picked that one up, this guy decided to say something. So it has all this new growth on it, which is great to see. I'll take it. I might eventually combine them just so I have one Macrophylla because the other one's doing really well too. So that makes sense in my mind. And it looks like they are the same variety. So that's cool. Back here, it's a fun story. Fun story affiliated with this one. So this used to be one plant right here. This was the original plant. I bought it as, it was billed as Hoya disparte. Should have known, could have researched a little bit more, because then I bought this other plant thinking I was getting an entirely new species of Hoya from a different seller. This one was an Etsy seller. This one was Logi's. And this one was billed as Hoya affinis. And I got them and compared them side by side and went, it's the same plant. Now, I say that, but ultimately, you know, you're never quote unquote positive with Hoya until they bloom and you can compare the flowers, but these look pretty darn close to the same plant. So I'm going with that. I have now a larger Hoya affinis that I ended up potting the vines together, and I really like it. It's doing really well too. All of this is kind of popping off here. This super long vine coming up. It's a great one. It's a good grower. So I'm not mad. Now I have to try and find a Hoya disparte again. So next to that one, I have this other Hoya Gianna. I showed you the smaller version that I rehabbed a little bit earlier. So that's what this one is. Hoya Gianna there. And it's a good grower too. All of this is new. I'm trying to figure out if it likes the trellis. It's kind of an upright grower, but it was getting a little unwieldy, so I wanted to put it on a trellis. And it was kind of resistant. It wasn't the easiest, but it seems to be doing okay on it now. And then in front of those two, I have some smaller ones here. This is my Hoya Jennifer. And for a very long time, this was a very sick plant. Right when I got it, this is kind of one of my favorite success stories of rehab. When I got it, these two leaves were the original leaves, and they were super chlorotic. They were very, very yellow. I thought the whole thing was dying. The roots wasn't sure about, and so I stuck it in a terrarium forever, it seemed like. And one day, we had a new growth point, and the leaves were green again, and she's been fine ever since. This was the leaf that really, really boosted my confidence. And then since then, it's put out this one. It looks like it lost a new growth that it had going on, but that's okay. Hoya Jennifer is looking good. And Hoya Jennifer is a cross, it's a hybrid, so I will also include the hybrid Hoyas that it comes from. I think one is Hoya incrusata. I'll make a note, it'll be on the screen. Moving over here, this is Hoya Camp. Let me try that again. This is Hoya Camp forfolia. This is also one that kind of struggled, and that's kind of a theme that I have. I have Hoyas that did really, really well out of the gate, and then I have Hoyas that took a little while to either recover or find their footing in my house. It just took them a little bit longer to acclimate, and Camp forfolia was definitely one of those. It is since a really strong grower. So basically from here up is from the summer and has that vine, so I put it on a trellis, vined out, and the leaves are really, really beautiful. They're this delicate shape, but then they do have those veins in them. I love the Hoya leaves that show the veination really nicely. And these are pretty rigid leaves. They're not as delicate as they look. They're quite rigid. And back behind that one, I have one of my newer Hoya acquisitions. This is Hoya O Dorada. And again, this is kind of an upright growing Hoya, probably similar to Hoya multiflora in that its growth habit is less of a creeping vining plant and more kind of an upright bushy grower. And no complaints with this one. I've heard the flowers are really, really sweet smelling, really, really pungent and beautiful smelling. So that'll be cool if that ever flowers. And over here, this is another fuzzy Hoya. This is my Hoya Calla. And yeah, these leaves are awesome. It's put out a little bit of new growth here. They're definitely a different shape than the OG leaves. The newest ones have come out a little bit misshapen, and I'm not sure why entirely. Probably a number of factors that I could address, but I just love how fuzzy they are. And this one I thought was going to be kind of an upright grower, but it does seem to appreciate the trellis. So in front of that one, this is my Hoya Obovata. It's a pretty popular Hoya, popular in large part because of these awesome round hefty leaves. And this one is splashed. I don't know if that is because it is just a splash variety or if it is just Hoya Obovata and has a little bit more splash than others I've seen. I'm not sure, but I do really love it. And this one is still, this is a slower grower for me. It hasn't taken off this summer like some of my others have. But I still love it. And then over here I have my Hoya Chelsea, which was recently rehabbed, one of the vines. And it seems to be doing pretty good. This corner might be a little bit dark for it. I'm just going to wait and see. I've turned off one of the grow lights that I have. I have a supplemental grow bulb right there. Hoya Chelsea here, which is also, it's a cultivar of Carnosa. Has these broad dimpled leaves. They're not like as dimpled as the Crinkle 8, which actually has 8 dimples in its leaf. That's where it gets the name. But it is very unique shaped, kind of saucer shaped leaf, which I appreciate. Getting on to the end here, so just a couple left. This is my second Macrophylla, Variegata, which, as you can see, has quite a few grow points happening. Quite a few new little leaves on here. This little guy's new. Don't want to mess with it too much. But this is just a nice size plant, and of course you can see there's room on the end. I'd be able to put my other Macrophylla with it and kind of just have this big, full, fun plant. It's already quite full, but I like the idea of consolidating plants that are the same. You know, you don't really need 2 or 3 or 4 of one variety of plant. That's my opinion though, of course, no judgment, but that is my opinion. I personally like to have as much space as I can have on shelves, so that just makes sense to me. Then my last Hoya that I'm going to show you is this Crimson Queen. This is my other Crimson Queen that is, it's doing okay. I say that, it's one that has always just kind of been hanging in there. It's never been super jazzed. It's never been super mad. I don't know. It just kind of does its thing. These look fairly new, these leaves. And it has this little white one down on here. A lot of half moons I'm noticing on this one. That's kind of cool. I like the variegation. Neat. All right. Everything's looking good, and as I've been showing you these, I've kind of been testing them. You might notice me touching the leaves and stuff, but it's kind of, like I mentioned, it's that time of the week for me to really kind of crack down and start watering. I know a lot of my Hoyas are ready for a drink, so a lot of times they will tell you, obviously, testing the soil is kind of the prime way to figure out if a plant needs water, but a lot of Hoya will tell you just by kind of the texture and feel of their leaves, if they're flimsy, if they're feeling a little more papery than usual, they're probably ready for some water. You don't want to wait too long until, you know, like the leaf is super wrinkly, in my opinion, especially in the summer, just because it causes undue stress to the plant and you're inviting pests if you do that. But yeah, so they'll talk to you. They'll tell you kind of when they're ready. So that is kind of my main Hoya shelf. Got some big growers in here. Thanks for checking out my Hoyas with me, guys, and until next time, enjoy your plants.